terrifying elements. How Russian tanks are destroyed one by Ukrainian FPV drones. Among other reasons, Russia suffered heavy tank losses. One of the primary causes was the FPV, first-person view, drone. FPV UAVs equipped with munitions have been used by Ukrainian forces engaged on the Nir River's east bank to target Russian forces. An 11-tank and armored vehicle Russian column seemed to be destroyed by Ukrainian forces. An intelligence update from the UK Ministry of Defence shows how effectively FPV UAVs are being used by Ukrainian forces on the east bank of the Dnieper River. Drone warfare has entered a new phase with the use of these drones as a major component in the targeting of Russian soldiers. Nearly 90% of Russian cars in the Kinki district have been damaged, according to a Russian blogger. Russia's seeming incapacity to oppose such technology is one reason for the Ukrainian troops' effectiveness in employing these drones. Russia's incapacity to resist these FPV UAVs is likely caused by a deficiency of Russian electronic warfare capabilities in the region, according to the UK Defence Intelligence report. The Ukrainian troops now have a significant advantage because to this breach, which enables them to launch targeted and efficient attacks against Russian military targets. Researchers working on the Toshin D-Info project, which analyzes data related to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, have released a report with statistics on the use of FPV drones by the Russian and Ukrainian armies between August 2023 and February 27, 2024. Similar to a previous research by GeoConfirmed, the analysis is based on open-source intelligence that was obtained and verified by a person going by the handle Leandru Perpetua. This intelligence includes the precise locations where each FPV strike occurred. While this study does not provide a complete picture of the issue, it does provide the information needed to identify trends and draw specific conclusions. The authors of the research categorized all occurrences that were noted into three groups: first-person shooter attacks on infantry, defensive positions, and vehicles. When it comes to vehicle strikes, Ukraine continues to have the upper hand against Russia, outnumbering them by a factor of more than 3. Ukrainian forces launched 257 strikes in contrast to 632 Russian strikes. Targeting and neutralizing Russian military vehicles, the FPV UAVs with munitions are working in tandem with artillery. A Russian military blogger has estimated that as a result of these operations, a startling 90% of Russian military hardware in the Kinki sector has been destroyed. This graph highlights the importance of the Ukrainian approach as well as the potency of FPV UAVs in contemporary combat. The situation of the Russian forces at Kinki on the left bank of the Dnieper in southern Ukraine is becoming more and more unstable, if that is still a need for proof. The majority of Russian military vehicles stationed in this region are losing ground, which indicates a generally poor battle dynamic. The Ukrainian forces' tactical and technological advantage is mostly to blame for the grave circumstances facing the Russians. The Ukrainians have been able to dominate the battles because to the efficient usage of explosive-laden FPV UAVs and local air control. A key component of their dominance has been their capacity to block Russian drone communications while maintaining connections. A significant part of this accomplishment has been attributed to the 35th Brigade of Ukrainian Marines. They have nevertheless caused significant damage to Russian forces, notably the 104th Air Assault Division, the 810th Marine Brigade, and several army regiments. Due to their superiority in drone reconnaissance, the Ukrainians have been able to use artillery to successfully target enemy locations, resulting in the tremendous damage of Russian military hardware. Even though Ukraine has lost a lot, especially in boats, their tactical inventiveness and resilience are demonstrated by their ability to keep up supply lines in the face of Russian attempts to cut them off by air and sea. On the other side of the Dnieper, the Ukrainian footing is strong. There have been numerous claims that Russia is increasing the manufacturing of military vehicles in an attempt to replenish its depleted ranks, despite the severe losses sustained by Russian forces in the Kinky sector and elsewhere. This production boost is said to be a direct reaction to the significant deaths caused by Ukrainian artillery and FPV UAVs. Analysts still need to be persuaded, though, if this increase in manufacturing will be enough to offset the magnitude of the losses. Although the Ukrainian forces show that they can use cutting-edge warfare technologies successfully, it is still unclear if the sheer quantity of brand-new Russian vehicles will be enough to tip the scales in their favor. The effectiveness of such strategies and technologies will surely influence how military operations in Ukraine unfold as the crisis rages on. FPV UAVs are an obvious illustration of how unmanned technologies are playing a bigger role in contemporary warfare and present both new opportunities and difficulties. According to a statement from Defense Express, the Army may not have as many drones as it needs, and some resources may have been redistributed. As we can see, Ukraine leads somewhat overall in FPV strikes against enemy infantry, 1,779 versus 1,752, but at this point, Russian strikes are beginning to surpass Ukrainian strikes, 533 against 600 in January. It is significant to observe the rate of increase in numbers, which suggests that Russia is attempting to increase the use of drones. The number of infantry strikes increased by 300% in November and by 150% in December. Ukraine's indices are increasing as well, albeit not as quickly. The Russian army is almost 10 times ahead in terms of the number of strikes against defensive sites at the same period. This may have something to do with the Ukrainians' deliberate efforts to deliberately undercut the Russian onslaught by attacking their combat, especially the transport vehicles that give Russian operations logistical support. The viewpoint of the specialists on FPV drones, which have altered the modern combat, is noteworthy. Trenches used to provide shelter from shelling, but with the advent of FPV drones and the potential threat of drone-dropped weapons, the protection that infantry can receive from trenches has significantly changed. Tokadoino researchers have come to the general conclusion that, although Russia may catch up in a few days, Ukraine now has a tiny advantage in the employment of FPV drones on the battlefield, 3,886 versus 2,889.